Well, we're back with more Road Gang Radio, streaming live on iHeartRadio, YouTube, and RoadGangRadio.com. Jimmy Mack is back in the driver's seat.
Let's talk about the fat cats in the nation's capital. You better put on your hip boots because we're going to wade through not only the swamp, but elbows up, man. You can smell it a mile away. It is Washington Trucking Week, OOIDA.com. Go to the Book of Face, OOIDA. You can find them on the tweets. They used to be the tweets, now they're the X. On the Tube of You, Truckers, OOIDA. And that's a good YouTube page. I would really recommend, after you subscribe to ours, to subscribe to that one. And then, of course, on the gram of Insta at OOIDA Truckers. We talked with Dean earlier. There are some regular recurring characters on this particular rumbling, bumbling, stumbling affair known as Road Gang Radio. One of them is, sorry, brother, you've really locked in now. You are actually you're actually in the credits, high up in the credits now. Collin Long, the Director of Government Affairs, joins us this morning. How you doing, man?
All right. I was pondering whether character is a term of endearment or...
Well, no. How about I got a great way of summing this up. Are you ready? It's really cool what I've got for you. You are a character who is also a man of character.
Oh, well, I'll take that. Thank you.
There you go, by the way. And by the way, part of it is due to the fact that, like Phone Master Dre, like myself, but we can't compete with Ben Wilkins, you are one of the men who has a great beard. And this is an important thing people need to realize. I'm telling you, man, you are not a beardo. You are a beard bro. How about that? Okay. Go on.
I've had a beard longer than I've known my wife, and it didn't used to be acceptable on Capitol Hill. And I like to think I started the trend, but I certainly didn't. But, you see more and more of them now, even lawmakers have them. So
you want to know something really awful my dad said? He goes, isn't it kind of scary that beards and civil wars show up at the same time? I'm like, take it easy, Dad. Take it easy. By the way, I'm gonna give you a good laugh. You ready? So today is Hasselhoff's birthday. We should all celebrate. We should have a national holiday for David Hasselhoff's birthday. And anybody that shares a birthday with James Cagney, as far as I'm concerned, is a righteous dude. So let's just all agree that David Hasselhoff is a national treasure that has actually conquered Germany. So I think we can go with that. I think that's an important thing. How you doing? What's going on?
We're busy, man. I need a break. It's reached a fever pitch in D.C. I mean, that's pretty standard for July because, everyone on Capitol Hill and even in the administration wants to enjoy the long August recess with as little work as possible, if we're being honest. So they try to cram everything through in July, and that's certainly what's happening now. We've got a lot of activity on Capitol Hill, a lot that happened this week, a lot that's happening next week. And then hopefully they all get out of town so we can breathe easy for at least a couple days before we really get into the busy work of August, which does happen. I mean, just because everyone here in D.C. tends to take a break doesn't mean we stop working at OOIDA. We still got a lot of stuff to do. So,
well, let me ask you a question about civic-minded nature stuff in the sense that a lot of people in August take a break, but you guys at OOIDA keep working. I was curious, are the staffs busy? Because I know that a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen, many of them go home, by the way, not to just take a break. Many of them go home to do constituent services. And and I would really tell people when you say, those guys are never in Washington, people either complain that they're never in Washington or they don't get among the people enough. And I always say, okay, that's a bridge too far. Anybody who knows how constituent services work, particularly at the congressional representative level, if you, in fact, do a good job with that, you can stay in office a long time.
Oh, yeah.
A long time. I mean, one of the things about that infamous group of congressional members of the squad, the one that is more or less still standing is, in regards to status, is the one who does the best constituent services. I let people figure out who I'm talking about when I say that. But really taking care of the people in your district is really what their job is supposed to be, correct?
Yeah, and when I worked on Capitol Hill, we got this all the time. You're absolutely right. If my boss was in D.C., then he was never home talking to people, and if he was home talking to people, then he was never working in D.C. And no one was ever satisfied with his status. But in August, you're right. A lot of lawmakers will be doing town halls. They'll be coming to community events and fairs, and it's really a great opportunity for truckers who are members of these communities to talk to their lawmakers, to get in front of them and introduce themselves as a reliable resource for trucking policy. I mean, I say this all the time. Truckers are experts on trucking policy. You live it every day. You shouldn't have any sort of hang-ups about talking to your lawmakers. And now's the time to do it, because August is usually the best opportunity to see them back home where you live, because they've got several weeks of recess. And certainly some of them will take vacation. I think everyone needs a vacation to kind of reset their mind and re-energize before fall when things get busy here again in Washington. But by and large, they're going to spend a lot of August actually conducting constituent outreach and talking to folks. And truckers should prioritize cornering their lawmakers at these events and talking to them about all of the things that are happening in the world of trucking, which are pretty extensive right now. We've got a highway bill coming up. Some people say it may be rolled out in the House as early as this fall. So August is going to be critical for shaping that, and we need members sharing their expertise with lawmakers and their staff over the month of August.
Let me kind of jump in with something, a little piece of scuttlebutt, and then we'll get to your topics and agenda. And one of them actually feeds into the first thing we're going to talk about.
Cool.
There have been rumblings and bumblings I won't lie to people. I full disclosure, I was not crazy about the appointment of Sean Duffy. I kind of rolled my eyes and went, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" I will tell you, he has been one of the nicest surprises for me, at least. I don't know what you guys are dealing with, but he's been a nice surprise from policy standpoint. Is he really going to take over NASA? Is that a real thing? Is that really going?
Yeah, I believe it is. I think it's an interim thing, and he testified before the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee yesterday, and this question came up, and he was like, he was being clear that it's a short-term thing. He's just filling a position for an intermediary period, so the agency can continue to do its work. But we'll have him back focused on transportation exclusively, I think, relatively soon. But I think you're right with Mr. Duffy. I mean, I should say Secretary Duffy. I think he's been a really great breath of fresh air over at DOT. I mean, don't get me wrong, Pete Buttigieg, we certainly like Pete Buttigieg. He was very knowledgeable about transportation issues. He particularly was comfortable talking about the need for truck parking, which we always applauded. But we've appreciated the prioritization of truckers at DOT under Secretary Duffy and under President Trump. It's clear that when they want to step out and develop trucking policy, they do so by leading with what truckers need. So, yeah, great reviews from folks here at OOIDA and certainly from our membership as well. They seem to be pretty big fans of Mr. Duffy. And
let me make this really clear. You know, and by the way, it seems that you've picked up the baton nicely here. You know what I'm setting up, because I won't lie to you, I am over the moon from my own editorial standpoint. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about from a purely boots on the ground level. The FMCSA appointment looks, keep your fingers crossed, like a home run and fast track sailing. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I think it is. Yes. Derek Barrs did an exceptional job at the Senate Commerce Committee yesterday. And I think you could tell from the tone that a lot of members of the committee probably already made up their mind about how they're going to vote on Mr. Barrs. And I think it's clear a lot of them are going to be supportive. And frankly, we don't see a reason not to support him. We've endorsed him. We've been endorsing him for months, waiting for this nomination to move through the process. So we're happy that's happening now. And I think you're right. I think he'll cruise. There's no reason not to support him. Other Trump nominees have certainly garnered some opposition in the Senate, but this is one where I think the pick was soundly accepted and endorsed by industry, and that really sets the table for members of the Senate Commerce Committee to vote to confirm here in the next couple of weeks. And then once it reaches the Senate floor, we don't see any problems getting him into place and over at the agency pretty soon to rock and roll on a lot of the initiatives that they've launched to help truckers.
And by the way, I'm going to say something else too. And like I said, this is by way of applause. His nomination wasn't designed to piss anybody off. Straight up, it was designed to be like, here's somebody that actually knows the heartbreak of what it means to, see people lose their lives on the road. Who actually has to. And look, he's not a trucker, but he's the next best thing to be in there in a way that everybody else, many people, incredibly capable people with background and knowledge, some of them in the industry. But I don't think we've had anybody in a long time who actually has had that up-close look at truckers and what it is they go through. And you can correct me, than this man has. I mean, this looks like a guy, and we talked about it, it looks like it might be his dream job, too. That's kind of thrilling as well, as opposed to, how do I get back to that great job I had in New York? How do I get back to that committee that I wanted to head up in Minneapolis? And that's not an attack on people, or how do I get to the great private sector gig that's waiting for me? He feels like this is the gig, right? It's almost like when a college football program gets the right coach, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I feel you on that, and I think you're right. And I think we talked about this last week. I think we hope he sticks around. Now, granted, he hasn't made any moves as administrator yet. He hasn't been confirmed yet, but he's saying the right things. He's doing the right things. It's not often that OOIDA comes out and supports nominees for FMCSA Administrator. We usually insist that they have experience behind the wheel, but this one, I guess we've taken exception because we have experience with Mr. Barrs. He's not a new name to us. Our folks internally have worked with him over the years at CVSA, where he's been in a leadership position for associate members, just like we are, and he's gotten rave reviews there too. So we're looking forward to him getting confirmed. I think it's a formality at this point, but tick-tock. We've been waiting a while. We want the Senate to move relatively quickly because FMCSA and DOT have a lot of work to get done on trucker issues, and having an administrator in place will certainly expedite that process.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy, and the other thing is, and this is the last thing I'll say before we pivot into truck parking, by the way. I know we keep talking about it, but man, there's once again some real progress here in regards to it being a hot topic and less about committee and more about action. But this really seems to be a person with deep institutional knowledge of trucking, and in that way makes him a really kind of a great candidate. Like I said, we haven't seen him do anything yet. I mean, he hasn't won a game on the field yet, but good gosh almighty, it must feel like to some degree what it felt like for Alabama fans when they announced that Nick Saban was arriving over at the Crimson Tide. So I'm just going to put that out there. I know it'll gall Lewie, but it's the way that Ohio State fans felt when they got Urban Meyer to start coaching over there. So we'll put it that way for Lewie's benefit. There you go. So.
Here's a deep reference. I'm a Syracuse guy. It feels like we got our Fran Brown over at FMCSA.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Fran Brown is yet, stick around. He's going to make a lot of noise in college football, and we're excited about it. But we're equally excited about Derek Barrs getting the helm of FMCSA because you're right. There's a very narrow learning curve, which isn't usually the case when we have FMCSA.
Yeah, I mean, boy, that is a big thing. And I'll tell you this, too. It's like where you can hit the ground running. The idea that when you guys sit down and talk with this human being, anybody in the trucking industry, and I'm talking about stakeholders that don't have the same interests you have at heart, that he can listen and be like, I know what you're talking about. Don't talk to my staff. You don't need to get me. I don't need a white paper. Go on. You know what I'm saying? Go on. I mean, this is a guy. This was a guy whose presence was felt at CVSA meetings. I mean, this is somebody who knows the gag and actually knows the tragedies and heartbreaks. There's a really good story by our friend, yours and mine, Mark Schwemmer, kind of detailing his background that people should really check out. Sorry, we went into the weeds. That's enough of that. Let's talk about truck parking.
Yeah, let's. So we've been busy in D.C., as I mentioned. Yesterday was a particularly busy day. We had, Mr. Barrs testifying in his confirmation hearing over in the Senate Commerce Committee. In the House Transportation Committee, we had Secretary Duffy testifying, and truck parking came up at both hearings, and we were thrilled by that. And we've gotten to a point here in Washington, and specifically on Capitol Hill, where we talk to our champions in Congress, and we say, "Hey, Mr. Duffy's coming to testify. The FMCSA Administrator nominee is coming to testify. Can we work on a truck parking question for you to help get some of our questions answered?" And they always say, "Yeah, let us know. Let's work on something." And we provide questions for them on what's currently happening in the world of truck parking and our efforts to get federal investment finalized. And yesterday was a unique scenario because we did provide those questions. Mr. Bost, our grand champion on truck parking, was prepared to ask Mr. Duffy about truck parking. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get to it because the questions had already been asked by Congressman Crawford and Congressman Babin, who certainly is a champion on our issues as well. And I think it speaks to the fact that truck parking has gone beyond just your traditional champions who have an experience or an expertise in trucking like Mike Boston. more and more folks are starting to appreciate that it's something that needs to get done. And then, we're watching Derek Barr's confirmation hearing over in the Senate, and Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada strikes up a question about truck parking, which we didn't see coming. And I started texting our crew, and I said, it's proof positive we've broken through on truck parking when we don't have to work with these offices. They just take it upon themselves to ask these questions because the issue has become so important to them and their constituents back home. And I think that's a testament to the work that not only OOIDA has done as an industry leader on truck parking, but our industry by and large. I mean, we get support from everyone in our industry on truck parking, and I think that really shows what the industry can do when it's united to get things done. Now, we're not claiming victory yet, but we keep having these incremental successes where folks who haven't really stuck their neck out on truck parking are now asking questions about truck parking to folks like the Secretary of Transportation and the future FMCSA Administrator. And we think that puts us in a really good position for success down the road when there's a highway bill unveiled this fall.
By the way, and this is what I love about our new format, Marshall Platter says, I often criticize OOIDA because I often think they tilt at windmills, but I'm a lifetime member, which, by the way, means it's okay to be pissing inside the tent. Think everyone who drives a truck should be a member. Well said, Marshall. The other thing is I'm actually not going to contradict Marshall. I'm going to say this is an example of tilting at windmills. The idea that, 10 years ago, nobody was listening. At some point, the parking stopped being part of the noise and became the signal. And that's why sometimes you guys don't give up the goat, even when it seems like it is an impossible Sisyphean task. On every once in a while, the rock does get to the top of the hill and rolls to the other side, correct?
Absolutely. And I say this all the time. The one thing I've learned as a lobbyist at OOIDA is that our members address issues affecting their businesses immediately. They don't waste any time. And that doesn't necessarily generate a lot of patience when it comes to advancing legislation and policy on Capitol Hill, because Capitol Hill works extremely slow. No one addresses something overnight like a trucker does when they have a problem with their vehicle or their operation. So we always beg for patience, simply because it sometimes does take 10 years to get something done. And we don't like that either. I mean, as a lobbyist, I want to move on to other issues that are important to our members. But the big ones still remain, and truck parking is continuously the biggest. But, we do have this highway bill, and we are confident truck parking will be addressed in it. And we're confident other issues that are important to truckers will be addressed as well, because, we can talk and chew gum at the same time. It might be a little rude, but that's what we can do, and that's what we have to do. We can't focus solely on one issue, but I think our persistence on truck parking is now paying dividends, because we have these new folks on Capitol Hill coming out and saying, yeah, it's a priority for me and it's a priority for my constituents, and I want to see it addressed. Yeah,
and by the way, the more you kind of keep repeating, okay, the noise, what I talk about when I say the noise is the inability to see what's going around you because there's so much going on around you, so you don't hear anything. If, in fact, you keep beating home the point that there's a truck parking problem, I will tell you, and I knew there was before I even started this job, but I'll tell you, I used to drive out every once in a while to go see Dre over in Ocean Springs, and Dre drives in, and Dre can tell you, Dre makes the drive from Ocean Springs to the city of New Orleans Monday through Friday, and he will tell you he sees all those trucks parked on the side of the exit ramps. It is like clockwork, and I would see the same thing, and when you've been told about it by people you trust, you start seeing it more. And when you start seeing it more, you want to do something about it. That is such a crucial thing that often what happens is we see so much, we see nothing at all. But if somebody tells us to look for something, we actually see it. And so I'm sure the senator from Nevada probably was driving someplace and went, oh my God, I never noticed this before, but since they've been banging this drum, these people need a place to park. That's kind of how it plays out, correct?
Oh, yeah, and that's actually part of our advocacy on Capitol Hill when talking to staff and lawmakers. We often say, last time you were on a highway and you passed a rest area or even just an exit ramp, and you see trucks lined up on the side of the road on the shoulder, and everyone says, oh, yeah. And I think in some cases, there's this, they don't realize that truckers, one, shouldn't be parked there because it's usually not allowed, and two, they don't want to be parked there because it's hazardous to their own safety. And when we explain that to these lawmakers and their staffers, I think a light bulb goes off, And then you're right. I think the more they travel the roads and the more they see it, the more they realize how much of an epidemic the truck parking shortage is.
It's a learned helplessness, too. The idea that we no longer see it because we just accepted it as the new normal. That's the other thing, too. Well, nothing to be done. Let's move on. Oh, no, there's something to be done. It's called allocating money to give people more parking spaces.
Exactly.
And that's the painfulness of this problem is the fact that it's actually not a complicated solution. I mean, there's some zoning stuff and a whole bunch of other stuff you have to get into in the nitty-gritty.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, if you give us the money, we actually have a plan to put more parking in place. It often is that, especially at the state level. There's states who are itching to take care of this problem and simply don't have the resources that the federal government can apply. I want to kind of glaze over Lewie Pugh really quick. I'm going to give you an option here because we're going to run out of time. Do we talk about Mr. Pugh goes to Washington once again in front of the Senate next week, or do we talk about shifting gears issues?
We talk about everything, and I certainly want to mention that Lewie's going to be testifying before the Senate Commerce Committee again. This is his second time this year, and it's only, July, next week, next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, simply because I want folks to tune in. I want folks to see what it is OOIDA does on Capitol Hill and how effective Lewie in particular is when talking to lawmakers who are writing bills that are imperative to truckers. So, yeah, I mean, let's talk about that hearing for as much as we can, and then I'll certainly be back on next week to do a review and talk about all the great things we mentioned. But, 10 a.m. Tuesday next week. Tune in if you can. If not, it's going to be available on YouTube, and we'll certainly be providing highlights.
Collin, one more quick thing before we actually pivot into that last issue.
Sorry.
We're good. We're good. Our friends on the chat, and these guys are owner-operators, a lot of miles behind them, are actually having a conversation about the eventual movement. Is it possible the CDL to become a federal license instead of a state license? Is that even part of the discussion? Because a lot of them are saying, the idea of the complexities of all of that kind of stuff. I just kind of wanted to lay that out for you, not to talk about today, but maybe come back in a future episode and maybe dig into that issue. Is that possible?
Yeah, we can come back to that. I don't think it's going to be a reality, and I can explain why I don't and why maybe it shouldn't be. But we can certainly come back and talk about that.
Okay, we will. We've got that on the docket now. Okay, let's talk about this. What's going on with shifting gears issues impacting the trucking and commercial bus industries in the U.S.
Yeah, there's a hearing next week. It's Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And it's a lot of familiar faces. It's ATA, it's OOIDA, it's the American Bus Association, it's the Teamsters Union. I mean, that's a pretty epic lineup when it comes to FMCSA's portfolio and motor carrier issues at large. And the hearing's happening at the Senate Commerce Committee. And if folks remember that they write a large portion of the highway bill. They write a lot of the policy that affects what happens on our roads. So they are knee deep in trucking policy. They're trying to figure out their priorities for their bill that they will be drafting throughout the August recess and into fall. And Lewie's going to be testifying to provide, the owner-operator, the professional driver experience that only OOIDA can do. And I think Lewie is kind of a breath of fresh air in his own right at these hearings because he has a CDL, and he worked behind the wheel for more than 20 years, and he racked up more than 2 million miles of safe driving. So I think a lot of lawmakers, when they hear Lewie talk about these issues and OOIDA's priorities specifically, I think they take him very seriously because they know he is a true representative of the driver community like no other organization can provide. I mean, all of our members are drivers. I don't think any other organization in Washington, D.C. can say that. The Teamsters certainly represent truck drivers, don't get me wrong, but they represent a lot of other blue-collar workers as well. Whereas at OOIDA, we exclusively represent men and women who make their living behind the wheel. And as a result, a lot of the priorities we promote for the highway bill look to improve working conditions and compensation and driver safety. I think we talk about safety so much. A lot of times we lose the fact that professional drivers are often the ones who are injured or worse, killed in a lot of these accidents. And I think that kind of gets lost on folks. So we always try to provide a reality check that highway safety affects our members just as much as it affects every lawmaker's constituents who get behind the wheel of a passenger vehicle or get to an Uber or whatnot. So we really want to hammer home what we want to see in this highway bill. And certainly that's going to conflict at times with other folks on the panel and with what lawmakers want to do. But we're going to tell it like it is, as we're known for doing in Washington, and Lewie's the best person to do it.
You know, one of the things that's really interesting, I wanted to mention this earlier, and we got to something else that was equally compelling, and so I kind of basically tabled it, but I want to bring this back. Recently, I have a friend of mine who is involved in litigation, and I kept getting on him about getting this stuff in. He says, well, why should I even worry about it? I mean, it takes the law court so long to get kind of going. And my response was, that's exactly why you've got to get this done. And one of the things about advocacy people don't understand is, why do you seem so urgent? Washington takes forever. That's exactly why you need to be urgent. That's why when there's a 30-day comment period, people need to comment. They need to understand that since the rest of this machinery works so slowly, anything you can do to jumpstart it, to get it going, to line this up, you need to do instantly. It's one of those things where the system functions slowly, therefore it requires the individual players to move quickly. I mean, and that is, it seems like it's a contradiction, but it's not at all. And so much of what goes on here is like the reason why you continue to push truck parking or continue to push no speed limiters is the fact that this stuff takes time, and if the policy kicks in, once it kicks in, getting something overturned is often a hell of a lot more difficult than preventing something from happening at all, which is why you've often got to move quickly in your atmosphere. And something else that's really important to point about Lewie, I'm actually not criticizing him, I'm actually praising him. It is so difficult to somehow seem not unprepared, but to seem so down home while at the same time being in complete command of your facts and knowing how to talk to people. And he is a master at that. That is a very difficult thing to do. People either sound smart or they don't. In Lewie's case, it sounds like I'm just a truck driver with incredible command of facts, statistics, and numbers. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the deal, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and you know, I laugh because every time we're in a hearing, Lewie pulls out some sort of phrase I've never heard of that I'm sure is rooted in a farm or something. And you see senators like Deb Fischer, who has a background in livestock, kind of chuckle to herself about it because she recognizes it. And I'm like, I don't know how he does this, but he does it all the time. He also has this knack for, and it's just because of his personality, for knowing people who know people. I mean, you sit him in a room with just about anyone, and it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, only it's fewer degrees. He can find common friends and common relationships in no time. And I think even that gets displayed at these hearings. And I'm looking forward to it because we kind of live for these things as lobbyists, having our boss who hits dingers all the time step up to the plate and just sound off on what we want to see in a highway bill with Chris Spears sitting next to him. It's going to be great. And that's why I'm telling a lot of our members, if they can, to tune in on Tuesday at 10 to watch Lewie does what he does best in D.C.
I call it another edition of Mr. Pugh Goes to Washington, and as Lindsay would add, who's actually lurking in the background now, pew, 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 with his little pistols, actually taking on everybody like some kind of spaghetti Western hero. He is, by the way. He's my favorite. He sounds like somebody who would be a supporting actor in a spaghetti Western, doesn't he? Louis Pugh. Down, 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 down. Collin, we will continue our ongoing segment as Collin Long goes to Washington Trucking Week. That's the new title of it, by the way. Thank you so much, my friend. There's plenty more to talk about. We will spend some time the next time you come on explaining why there's not a federal license, why it will stay with the states, or at least your thoughts on that. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yep. Talk to you next week.
All righty. Collin Long, of course, is OOIDA's Director of Government Affairs and one of the smartest dudes I know, and the beard proves it.